Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. So are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's the flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Only Football Podcast. Tonight, we're going to be recapping the divisional round playoffs. We have got the teams ready for the NFC and AFC championship games, and we're going to talk about all four games that happened over this weekend. Of course, we're going to talk about the worst performances of this divisional round playoff in a segment we're going to call Get Off the Bus. Person didn't get off the bus during that game, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to do a quick NFL news roundup, talk about some coaches, some coordinators that got hired on some teams that definitely need it. And of course, we're going to end it off with the chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football. Football is America.
Football is America. If you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass. For the moment in time, I don't give a damn. Oh my god!
No!
You love this.
30 to 27.
No!
Chiefs win. Chiefs
No!
win 30 to 20. Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast. I'm Kyle, and that's Rick.
I'm Rick, that's Kyle.
And we're getting to the sad part of the year, right?
Yep.
14 out of 8 eliminated. It happens quick. 50% of the teams have been eliminated. I think this was definitely a better weekend than the wild card by far. We did have a couple blowouts though.
Mm-hmm.
And very disappointed. You guys know. And I wanted to open up with this really quick for everybody out there. Okay. Rick, I'm getting a lot of shit right now.
Are you?
I am. A lot. And I normally wouldn't care. You know, whatever. These people don't know me, but I do. I care a lot. What's going on? I am in a group chat with I would say around 2,000 Denver Broncos fans.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's saying, oh my God, the Ravens and the Chiefs, what the hell? We hate both of these teams.
Yeah.
And I had the courage to go in there and say, I'm going for the Chiefs. I'm going for the Chiefs. And they piled on. They piled on me. They sent me quotes of Pat Bolin, our dead old owner.
Oh my God.
You shall never cheer for a divisional rival. It said in the Super Bowl. I'm like, this isn't even the Super Bowl. You took it out of context. But there's a lot of people going crazy right now because Kansas City was supposed to have a down year. They advanced to the AFC Championship game in a down. There's a couple stories that we like. I know you wanted Tampa Bay to continue. Some people were loving the Jordan Love story. But we're going to start with that Houston-Baltimore game. Okay? Yeah. The final score was not pretty, Rick. It was not. 10-34. Nope. CJ Stroud and the Texans were not able to have the same success that they were able to have against Cleveland at home. I did think this was going to be more challenging of a game, just overall. And it turned out that it was much more than that. And CJ Stroud, I still believe in him, but this was not a good game at all. CJ Stroud ended up with 19 completions, but less than 200 yards. They could not run the football to save their life. 22 yards on the ground from Singletary. Nico Collins had 68 yards, but one of those came in a pretty big play. Overall, the Texans did not travel well. And I mentioned this Ravens home field advantage today in the Pat McAfee show. I heard it. I was in the lobby of a building, and I heard him go, "This might be the most underrated home field advantage in the National Football." And I said, "Yeah, man, absolutely. This place is crazy." And they are feeling like it is their year to win a Super Bowl. You got the 49ers on the other side who are kind of, they didn't look that great. We'll talk about it. But this Ravens team, this was a statement win. And we've seen that make statement wins all year, whether it was against Seattle or Detroit or San Francisco. They have beaten all these good teams by a large margin, and it looks like they're not showing any signs of slowing down. Rick, did the Texans not show up for this game, or is this just more of what we've had all year from the Ravens?
Oh, God, it's tough to answer that question. I really do think what we were.
I'm kidding.
Okay, I'm sorry. I really think what you said, though, is true. Like, this home field advantage is huge for the Ravens, and the fact that they get it 2 games in a row and probably 2 of the more important games in the playoffs is just big for them. The Texans offense, like it did show up, but it didn't at the same time. This offense didn't get to execute a play inside the Ravens 25-yard line. This Ravens defense limited this offense to 3 points. The only touchdown coming from a punt return touchdown. Yeah, thank you. A punt return touchdown. This defense was it was absolute domination by this Ravens defense, plainly put. It is what it is, and that's what it was. Absolute domination of this Ravens of the Texans offense. Look, you've also got to look at what CJ Stroud was able to do, because you take his numbers at face value and you're just like, okay, he didn't have a very good game at all. But no turnovers, nothing like that. I mean, Baltimore did force a fumble. I don't know if they recovered it or not. I forget what happened exactly in the game. I didn't get to watch the entirety of it. But CJ Stroud still, no turnovers. Like, he still played a pretty decent game. It's just he was going up against probably a top 2, top 3 defense in the NFL this year. And yes, he was able to beat the Browns defense the week prior, but it just seems like this Ravens defense is just way better. And obviously the home field advantage, like you said, is a big thing. The Texans were at home last week taking on the Browns, and the defense for the Texans, again, of course, they were going up against a very old man in Flacco. This Lamar Jackson is a different breed, man. Lamar Jackson is just a different breed of quarterback. 100 yards rushing. I think he had 170 or so passing yards, so nothing like ridiculous. 152. So overall, all the offense he played was, or all the offense that he produced was 252 yards. But he also produced 4 touchdowns in those 252 yards, which again is like extremely efficient. The numbers, again, we like to see big numbers. We like to see scoring. We like to see quarterbacks, get big numbers. We like to see hits. We like to see this. We like to see that. But when you have an efficient game and you score 4 touchdowns on 252 yards of offense from one single player, like, that's what more can you want? And you got the win. You got the win big. So what more do you want from Lamar Jackson, right? And, credit to the other players as well. Hill, 66 yards. Gus Edwards, 40 yards. Dalvin Cook, playoff D, got a few carries. I think he had, 23 yards on 8 carries. And that's only because Gus Edwards is out. Okay, you throw Gus Edwards in, Lamar Jackson doesn't have to rush for those touchdowns. So you got Dalvin Cook, you got Lamar Jackson, Nelson Aguilar.
they say you can't get fired on your day off, but when Dalvin Cook started performing on the field,
Yeah.
somehow Nathaniel Hackett, his seat became hotter, in my opinion.
Good, as it should, to be honest. And we've talked about, what Nathaniel Hackett has done in the Jets. But yeah, Zay Flowers, Bateman, Likely, Aguilar, all these guys produced in this game. And again, man, it was just absolute domination. Yes, the Texans took the game into halftime and they were tied, but it was the second half. It was like the Ravens offense just needed that half to really get back into rhythm. And you saw that they were able to in the second half because they left the Texans scoreless in that entire second half while they ran up the score 24 points in that entire of the second half. This defense is just amazing by the Ravens, man. It's hard to look at this game that they had against the Texans and think that the Chiefs stand a really good chance against it. But again, we also thought the Chiefs were gonna lose this week, but we'll get to that game later. Again, absolute domination by the Ravens, man. There's really not much else to say on my end.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk a little bit more later about CJ Stroud and the success they had, and whether we could reasonably expect that to be continued next season. But the score was tied at halftime, and Lamar Jackson took control of the game in the second half, and he did what he needed to do. Like you said, the numbers don't jump off the page, but they also don't need to. Yep. They need to jump off the page if Houston was able to put some points on the board and a little bit of pressure on Lamar to at least go back and forth. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr., I predicted he was going to have a big game. I was like, oh, it's like Von Miller for the Bills. It's like you keep him safe all season, then you unleash him in the playoffs. The guy had one catch for like 12 yards.
Yeah.
So
did not show up.
Yeah. So it is a little bit like, on one hand, you go, did the Texans play so poorly that the Ravens didn't need to have their weapons play a little bit better? Or are the Ravens so dominant that won't be necessary no matter who they play? And that's a very okay, well, would those numbers have kind of pulled them through if they played the Packers or a different team that was able to score? So I do think the Bills, exactly. So I do think this kind of performance really sets the stage for next week's game to be very divided with Chiefs and at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is just a guy that we'll put our money on every single time. I mean, you know, they say the house always wins. Betting on Mahomes is the closest thing to betting on to owning a casino. That is the closest thing. Because, yeah, sure, you're going to be wrong sometimes, but over a 10-year period, you're usually right when you pick that guy. So this is set up nicely. The Ravens' passing attack had 229 yards, but Lamar had over 100 yards on the ground. So talking about a dual threat, the Ravens, the number one rushing team in the NFL, a large part of that is because of Lamar. And when you see how he's developed as a pocket passer, at least from an outsider, watching him play, the ability to react to the blitz. They blitzed him plenty of times. Lamar never really looked flustered. And that's the thing. Like, Lamar's not just a running quarterback. He's not just a rookie coming out of Louisville that's just raw talent that is still trying to learn. Like, he's grown in the way that he reads defenses, his reaction time to picking up blitzes. And honestly, it's gotten to a point where if you want to blitz Lamar, not only does he have the speed to buy time, but he also has the throwing ability and the knowledge to make you pay for it down the field. And then if you want to sit back, then Lamar can run for 100 yards. We've seen a lot of, the closest thing I can compare him to is Michael Vick. Michael Vick, late in his career in Philly, when he was able to throw the ball, I mean, he was a baller, dude. He was not he was a dual threat. He's not just some running quarterback. people try to say, oh, tell me when you get a real quarterback. Quarterback's supposed to throw. Shut up. That's not true.
There was this one play I specifically remember. You say Michael Vick in Philly where he was moving either sideways or a little bit backwards, and he still launched that ball like 75 yards down the fucking field. I was like, how does this guy still have it? He's just a fucking gamer, man.
Yeah, and I think I know what throw you're talking about. Was it like insanely accurate?
It was insanely accurate and insanely long.
Yeah.
I think it was to Macklin or to Deshaun Jackson.
And Michael Vick played that he had some good teams, but I think this Ravens team is a little bit better than any team Michael Vick played on. So we'll see. I mean, this could very well be the year that Lamar Jackson's just playing at a higher level than any of the remaining teams. I would have thought that Buffalo winning gave the Ravens the most difficult path to the Super Bowl, but now that's not a thing. Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely stay tuned for our predictions, because we only got 2 football games. That's where we're at.
Football games. And I want to say a little bit something else about Lamar Jackson too, right? Because there was a quote, and it was the second victory in 5 playoff games for Jackson, a fact he is well aware of. And he says, quote, I heard that. I don't even got to hear it. I see it, but it is what it is. I really don't care what people say. Those guys just had our team's numbers in the past, but it's a different team, which really translates, kind of to what you were saying. Is Lamar Jackson just on another fucking level, right? Because he's the favorite to win the MVP this year. And you said it again in this game. He didn't look flustered. He didn't look like the Texans defense got to him in any way, shape, or form. He was just balling out, man. And of course, we talked about it too. Is Lamar and the Ravens just going to kind of fall into those old habits of those past playoff games? And they did not. They luckily did not, because like you said, in his playoff games prior to this one, it was just unimpressive across the board. And yes, it wasn't 300-yard passing game with 3 touchdowns, but he had 100 yards rushing, 150 yards passing, 4 total touchdowns through him. And I think with that, over 100 passer rating as a quarterback, he becomes the first player since at least 1948 in regular season or the playoffs to do all of that per CBS Sports. So, I mean, is he on another level? The playoffs thing, is it chirping in his ear? I don't think it is a thing anymore. And like you said, he's going up against a much better defense against the Chiefs. And we're going to talk about it in our predictions later this week. But this week against the Texans defense, who did really well against the Browns last week, he absolutely carved them up, man.
Yep. And like you said, we'll see if the next team can have a little more success, because this was the biggest blowout of the weekend.
Yeah.
Our next
is that
game,
I was going to say, is that why you said this one was a little bit better than the wild card weekend? Because the wild card weekend had a ton of like blowouts almost, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I said that, because there was just so many more close football games this weekend. I mean, we were watching a ton of games deep into the fourth quarter, wondering who was going to win. Yeah. And that's something the wild card round didn't really offer besides Rams Lions. There was a lot of blowouts. So yeah. And this next game we're going to talk about is another game that went down all the way to the wire. And the San Francisco 49ers are headed back to an NFC championship game. That's going to be their 4th conference championship game in 5 years. Brock Purdy.
Jesus.
Yeah. Brock Purdy gets to add another playoff win to his resume. But in my opinion, this was a far from perfect game from him. This is not a game that you're like, oh, man, watch out for Brock. This guy's insane. He finished 23 of 39, 252 yards. He had an excellent touchdown pass to George Kittle and a couple really good plays, but he also recorded 2 turnover-worthy plays that the Packers weren't able to capitalize on. With that said, he stepped up in a big way, especially on that last 12-play, 69-yard touchdown drive.
Hey, 69.
And that included completions of 10 yards, 17 yards, and the crucial 9-yard carry from Christian McCaffrey, which
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur wasn't calling timeouts at that point. We can get into that later. But defensively, Dre Greenlaw, he had a great game.
Yeah.
He had a great game. He was flying around. He actually picked off Jordan Love twice in the game. And he also racked up 9 solo tackles and 3 defensive stops. So I think for the 49ers, they're the most complete team, but missing Deebo Samuel, and the x-rays are negative. So that is great news for the San Francisco 49ers, because
let's go.
If you're talking about this being the year, I mean, that, like I said, they've been here 4 times in the last 5 years. It's not about this anymore. Like, you get to a point where it's like, cool. And Manning goes to the playoffs every year. No one cares, you know? So, I do think that they're going to need Deebo. I think if you're just an unbiased person watching this game, you went, holy crap, when Trent Williams or Deebo Samuel's not on this field. Oh my God, what a difference. What a difference. And you can just tell. Now, on the other side, I'll say, I thought the Packers played a great game. I thought they played winning football. I thought Jordan Love, for being on the road twice in the last 2 weeks, I thought he just proved that, I don't know, he's not going to choke in these moments. Like, he's going to rise to the occasion. He made a couple just insane throws. The one on the sideline really stands out to me on a 3rd down. But I said before that game started, and I'll ask you this question, and then you can take the floor, but I said Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, their season was already a success before this game started. And even before they beat the Cowboys, their season was a success. Yeah. So as much as that is true, this one hurts an awful lot, because the Packers really should have won this game. Jordan Love threw 2 interceptions in the 4th quarter. And I guess, they shouldn't have won the game because he did that. And I get that, but it just feels like it shouldn't have gone down like this. It really does feel like that whole game, it was like, holy crap, Green Bay's going to win this game. And it just kept feeling so weird. And then the 4th quarter happened, and that interception, that first pick right in the beginning of the 4th quarter, that was huge. And I mentioned this on the live stream, but the 49ers weren't even able to get a first down. But because of that interception, they were able to kick a field goal, because they got the pick and they were already in field goal range. If he punts that football and doesn't throw a pick, there's a great chance the 49ers are punting the football back to Green Bay. And that changes the whole outcome. So there's a lot of 1 or 2 scenarios. And in my opinion, these are the worst kind of losses. Like, getting blown out's not fun, but losing, and you could call it whatever you want, but the way the Packers lost, to me, is literally the worst way that you can lose a football game. Rick, what's your takeaway from this game? And do you think, am I making sense to you, or are you like, that's something a Packer fan would say, or somebody that was cheering for the Packers? Or do you kind of see where I'm going with this at all, with how the tables turned so quick in the 4th quarter, where the whole game, it felt like Green Bay was in control?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. For 3.5 quarters, maybe even a little bit more, the Packers were the better team. The Packers were clearly the better team. Brock Purdy couldn't complete a pass to save his life. He was overthrowing people. He was underthrowing people. He was not accurate. The rain may have had something to do with it, but then you look on the other side and you're like, well, Love's having an amazing game. Why aren't you having this same type of game at home with all these guys on your offense, right? That's always been the thing with Purdy, is like, oh, he's surrounded by weapons. Now do we see why Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate when he was getting the ball to his playmakers? Now do you see what happens when you don't, when a quarterback cannot do that? You can throw Devontae Adams, you got George Kittle there, but if you throw a Rob Gronkowski in his prime, you throw a Mike Evans in it, you could throw all these guys, a CeeDee Lamb, you could throw all these guys on the offense. If Brock Purdy performs an entire season the way he did in this game against the Packers for the first 3+ quarters, this team is lucky if they get 5 wins in a season. Let's be honest, right? So when Kyle and I were talking about Brock Purdy for MVP, this is the ugly side of him not being able to play at an MVP level. But you're 100% correct. Brock Purdy did not play well into this game until it mattered. And let's be honest. Yes, it's one of the worst ways for the Packers to lose, but Brock Purdy just kind of like on the sidelines. I don't know what happened. It was after that field goal or so. He just switched. He just flipped that switch, man. And he was like, you know what? On this game-winning drive, pretty much, I'm going to go 6 for 7, 47 yards, and I'm going to hand it off to CMC for a touchdown. And that's exactly what he did. He played amazingly when it mattered. Now, we cannot, by any means possible, ignore that first half and that third plus quarter. We also can't ignore how much CMC means to this team. He means a hell of a lot to this team. It would be another rough go for the 49ers if they don't have CMC running the ball the way he did, scoring 2 touchdowns like he did. It would be a very, very tough time for this 49ers team to continue through the playoffs, going to their 3rd NFC championship game in a row, 4th in the last 5 years, like you said. So yeah, with CMC has been a huge addition and has paid off like immensely. And they got him for peanuts. Let's be honest, right? For the Panthers, peanuts, penis. Peanuts.
He had 31.8 fantasy points, 17 carries, 98 yards. But are you surprised how he was used as a receiver? He had 7 receptions, 12 targets, 7 receptions, but only 30 yards. That's a pretty good job by Green Bay. This guy had 7 catches and he only puts together 30 yards. Normally he chunks that in 1 reception. Yep. So that's something that Green Bay did do well as CMC played. They did a good job maintaining him as a receiver.
And I think you look at those numbers and you're like, oh, that's a product of Brock Purdy just not having it that night. Let me dump it off to CMC.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And look, I don't or the defense, yeah. And I don't want to also just dump on Purdy because there was a ton of drops, man. There were a ton of drops from San Francisco wide receivers. I don't want to dump it all on Purdy. George Kittle had a drop. Brandon Ayuk, like you had drops really all over the place. And, that to me does kind of, in my opinion, fucks with a quarterback psyche going out there for the next play, right? I think you and I can both agree on that. Like you get a couple drops, you see what it does to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is still going to go out there and sling it. And he will take that credit to be like, you know what? I should have thrown a better ball. I should have done this, should have done that. But don't tell me that doesn't fuck with a quarterback going out the next play.
Yeah.
When your wide receivers just dropping balls all over the place and you're struggling to get in a rhythm with them. So I don't want to dump it all on Purdy, but you've got to spread the love of responsibility across the entire offense there. For the defense, you talked about it. Greenlaw, 2 interceptions in this game, and one was the game sealer there in the 4th quarter against Jordan Love, which I think we talked about it during the stream, Kyle, that Jordan Love final interception, very reminiscent of Brett Favre against the New Orleans Saints when he was on the Vikings, across his body towards the middle of the field, intercepted.
Runs in the family.
And guess what? Brett Favre, I think, retired after that or went to the Jets. Either way, he was out of the league. He was out of the league soon after that. At least Jordan Love's getting it out of the way now, man. So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a good thing. You got to take your wins where you can. That's silver lining. But Jordan Love played an amazing game, and it is kind of shitty because I think a lot of NFL fans and really NFL media, they're going to look at that interception, and that's going to define the game. Jordan Love threw for 2 touchdowns in the 3rd quarter to get his team ahead of the 49ers in that same game. Romeo Doubs, what's his name? Damn it, the other Reed
Christian Watson. Oh, Jalen
Reed. Yeah, Watson as well. I mean, he only had 1 reception for 11 yards, but Reed, Melton caught a touchdown. Like these guys were playmakers in this game. They were doing really, really well against this defense and like the conditions that they were in. They had the lead in the 3rd quarter. But like you said, it's one of the worst ways to win, and it sucks especially too when your kicker Carlson, who we both have talked about throughout our streams throughout the season, he's always missing kicks, man. And I just want to say this. Green Bay, now you guys know how it feels to lose a playoff game because of your kicker. Like, let's be honest. We'll get into a kicker game in a little bit later on in this episode, but Anders Carlson, the way he missed that kick, man, that's a rough one. That is a tough one to swallow. Also, quoted Matt LaFleur, whenever he goes out there, I pray, talking about his fucking kicker. You do not want that to be the feeling when your kicker goes out there. That is not the feeling you want when you're like, well, let's fucking hope it goes in. You know what I mean? So they kind of tried to develop him. They drafted him, and it sucks that it in really big moments he just kind of folds, man. It sucks for him, but you know, that's kind of the downside of having, you know, a young kicker and someone who isn't really proven in the league. And one other quick shout out for the Packers, because Kyle was so great in his words about Lamar Jackson. I'm going to do the same about the Packers. Aaron Jones, monster, over 100 yards rushing. And what he did against the Dallas Cowboys a week prior, he is going to be a problem in the league for a long time. And if the Packers can continue on this path of making the playoffs, winning divisions, winning wildcard games, winning, you know, divisional round games, you know, in the future, I think Aaron Jones is going to be a huge part of that, because he is an absolute beast. Anytime they handed him the ball, it's like, is he going to go for 10, 15, or a touchdown? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was every time he touched the ball. We got Lil Lee in the chat. What's up, Lil Lee?
What's up, Lil Lee?
So Aaron Jones, man, an absolute fucking beast on that Packers offense.
Yeah, and speaking of Anders Carlson, so in college, he only made 71.8% of his attempts.
Oh my God.
So the Packers drafted him in the 6th round because they were just blown away by this dude's leg strength. But he only made 71.8. So it's becoming clear that his consistency is not improving in the NFL. Yeah. And it's a 6th round pick. You know, maybe they can go and draft another quarterback, or even maybe you mentioned Aaron Jones, and it's an interesting topic, and we won't spend too much time on it, but we've seen so many times that running backs have the shortest lifespan in the NFL. And Aaron Jones isn't a guy that just emerged. This guy's been here for what, 5, 6, 7 years? Something
like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna see really quick, but it might even be good for the Packers to draft a running back, like a star running back, the best running back. And look at the Lions. They did the same thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. It's been 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years, 7 seasons.
Okay. So it's worth wondering, like, how long is that going to be able to last? But for right now, he's definitely playing really well. Man, Darnell Savage, though, that one pick that he dropped, that was a fucking pick 6.
And that's actually another thing I wanted to say. The defense for the Packers, how well they had been playing 4 of the past few weeks. Man, they let him down in a big moment. But go ahead with Darnell Savage.
Yeah, he had a pick 6 on Dak last week in the wild card round, and Purdy threw this ball directly to him, and Kyle Juszczyk was the only player between him and the end zone.
Oof.
He pretty much had 100% chance of making it a pick 6. And if the Packers get a pick 6 right here, maybe the 49ers don't feel as comfortable running the football, which is something that they needed in order to get back into this game. But imagine the score is too lopsided to give it to PMC, and now Brock Purdy's trying to make throws. I mean, it stings. And it's one of those games where the more you look at the analytics and these game-altering plays, the more it stings for Packers. Because it's like, there's just, we talked about the 2 picks from Jordan Love, and then there's the 2 picks that didn't happen for Green Bay. I mean, we're talking about 28-point swing here. Maximum, and assuming everyone becomes a touchdown. But there's so much that Green Bay is going to look at. And it's just like what Tyreek said in his press conference after losing to the Chiefs. They need to think about this when they're working out. They need to think about this in OTAs. This is the youngest football team in the NFL. So I absolutely believe that this playoff experience, that you can't buy this. You can't
No.
simulate it. It has to happen. And for Jordan Love's debut season to get this kind of experience along with all the other young players, I only expect them to get better because, as we've said a million times, if you get the quarterback right and the head coach right, that's pretty much 80% of it, right?
Yeah.
You got to get a good GM in, but look around at the remaining teams. They got the coach right and they have the quarterback right. There is no Tampa Bay was making a pretty good push, but every remaining team right now absolutely has the quarterback and coach.
And I want to, speaking of head coaches, I just want to give you guys one more note. Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers were 0-31 when trailing by 5 or more points entering the fourth quarter. They did that in this game, and they finally got a win in that column, beating the Packers in this divisional round. He can finally be like, I got one, baby. I got one.
And that's surprising because he definitely beats the Packers every time they're in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
And we can't move on without talking about the Nixon return where he returned it out of the end zone and then he fumbled and then a Packer fell on it, and it was the most insane play. That was with 7 minutes left in the third quarter. Things starting to get a little squirrely late in the game, but that
was exciting.
There's just a couple plays that the Packers needed to make, man, and they didn't make them. And the 49ers played bad enough where it almost looked like the Packers could get away with winning without making those plays. But we are reminded just how talented the 49ers are. They can show up to a game, have a bad day at the office, and win the football game against the hottest team in the NFL. But this is another hard one where it's like, are the Packers playing really well or did the Cowboys shit the bed? Because we feel like the 49ers didn't play that well and the Packers couldn't hang on to this win. So does that mean that the competition's just a little bit lesser than what we're seeing in the AFC right now? We'll find out. But a great game, whether, well, if you're a Packers fan, you probably don't think that, but in a little bit more time, they'll come around and understand that, hey man, 80% of the league, maybe 70, 65% of the league is searching for what the Packers have. And that's something that you can't buy. I mean, you can, but there's only a handful of them around. And we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield, and we're going to talk about Tampa, and we're going to talk about what that future looks like, because we talk about these handful of quarterbacks that are available every single offseason. And Baker Mayfield was definitely a very cheap, friendly deal. Was it $5 million? He's just on a team-friendly deal. And it looks like the greatest offseason accusation that was made, period, of any team. And there was not this kind of hype about Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield is also a victim of what went on in Carolina. He was a victim of being sold out to get Deshaun Watson. He was a victim of getting traded to the Rams when clearly Matthew Stafford's the guy. And then it was enough time of being a victim that when he did go to Tampa, we're like, I hope he does well, but let's, honestly, how high were the expectations? They were not this high. No. They were very, very close, as you can see on the score, to going into Detroit and getting this win. The Lions took a lot of heat for spending their 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs, but he gave them exactly what they were hoping for when they drafted him. He had a 31-yard touchdown run that kind of blew the game wide open for the Lions, and he also finished with 74 yards on the ground and had 40 yards in receptions. I talked about it all season about how these running backs, you're going to really get to value them once January football starts. And sure enough, that is the one thing that is separating Detroit, in my opinion, from all the other teams. They have 2 top 10 running backs on their team, and they're both playing really well. The Lions opened up on a 23-yard field goal. They looked like they were going to score, but the Bucs did a good job of stopping them in the red zone. This game went a little bit back and forth, but my offensive spotlight is that Baker Mayfield had a great game. He finished 26 for 41. He had 349 yards, 3 touchdown passes. He also had 3 last week. He did have 2 interceptions, but I don't think they were all his fault. And then Mike Evans was his primary target on the night, who had 7 catches for 142 yards and a touchdown. Jared Goff, though, he made play after play for the Lions. He was very consistent the entire night. He didn't make any mistakes. And he finished 30 for 43, 287 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jared Goff looks very, very comfortable in these games. He doesn't look any different. And I think that's common theme that we saw, maybe not the game we're going to talk about after this, but the common theme is just all these quarterbacks don't seem rattled. You know, my whole life, even the great quarterbacks had these issues. Like Peyton Manning was not a postseason quarterback. Brett Favre couldn't get to the big game. Aaron Rodgers, not his best games in the postseason.
Yeah.
So I am a little surprised at how the moment's not too big for any of these players who actually, you could argue, they haven't earned the right to be this comfortable, but they are. You know, they are this comfortable, and that's what's going to actually, ironically, secure them for the long term. Aiden Hutchinson, another great game defensively. He has just been everything and more that they thought he would be with the number 1 overall pick. But Jahmyr Gibbs, dude, he's a freaking rookie, and he's playing out of this world right now. And so is Jared Goff. I know that next week the game in San Francisco is going to be a good one. The line opened up with San Francisco as 7-point favorites. They are high off their ass if they think that the 49ers are going to win by 7.
Wow.
I won't get into it too much right now, but that's how the line opened up. And I think the Lions are easily, probably, I'll say, the second most complete team, second or third most complete team remaining.
Okay.
And I really do feel like everything that they want to accomplish, they can. Great press conference after the game by Dan Campbell as well. He talked about how it's a blue collar city, how it's not like LA. And I knew exactly what he was trying to say. Like in LA, it's like, you know, if you lose, you just go to the beach, or you go out. There's a million crazy good restaurants and cocktails, and there's other sporting events. You got the Clippers and the Lakers right there. Like there's so many options. But in Detroit, you got snow in your driveway. You got freezing cold fingers. You have factory workers, steel factory workers, and everybody just puts everything into their team. And I think Dan Campbell really just represents everything that we love about not just like Detroit football, but football in general. Yeah. And I think that's why he got choked up, because he understands that I don't know if he fully gets it, because you can't really reflect as a coach during the season. But for somebody that's on the outside that can, I'll say Dan Campbell has really changed a lot of lives this year. You take the job, you're the 20th coach, you know, that the Lions have hired in the last 20 years. I make the numbers up, but it was
just like a little exaggeration.
And he comes into this press conference, he says, "I'm not going to make any promises. You've had enough of that shit." And he said, he had a plan. His plan he never wavered from his plan. He kept the same posture when they were 0-7 as he is right now. And what he's done for Detroit is something that nobody has done in my lifetime, in your lifetime. So there's just a lot. I know this is a lot that I'm throwing at you here, but I really am just I'm proud. I think Detroit's becoming America's team this year. I really do. It just seems like everybody is like, it's their turn. And I credit Detroit for not getting so wrapped up in that, where it's like you forgot to show up to the game. You were so so emotional and nostalgic about everything that you didn't play. That's not what's going on here, and I think Detroit can make a push all the way to the big game. What is your take? And I know I talked a lot about the Lions, but I gotta tip my hat to the Bucks also.
Oh yeah,
they've surprised everybody. They had a chance to win this game. Baker had a great game, as I said. So I think all in all, this was just a great game. But Detroit's just a better football team this year.
Yeah, and Kyle?
Can't agree more.
Can't agree more. You're right, man. Going into this game, Jared Goff was going up against Baker Mayfield. Last week, he was going up against Matthew Stafford. All of those guys were number 1 overall picks for their respective teams that drafted them. All of those guys are no longer on the teams that drafted them. All of those guys found success this year where it didn't seem, guaranteed. Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. But Jared Goff is the only one moving on to the NFC Championship game, man, because he played a stellar fucking game. You said the stats, 2 touchdowns. And one of my biggest criticisms about him is if he turns the ball over, it seems to be that it's done. The game's over. You get Jared Goff rattled and it's over. He hasn't done that for 2 weeks. He's played almost perfect Jared Goff football. At one point during the season this year, I was saying he has played almost a full entire season of just like tremendous, spectacular football, something that you would want out of a franchise quarterback. And he's doing so in the playoffs now. When it really, really matters, he is at home, of course, which is very helpful. But really, it's he's the one who's making sure that this Detroit Lions team is moving forward. Dan Campbell absolutely has also made a huge or is a huge reason that the Lions are where they're at. He was on the 0-16 team. He talks about the blue collar city, the tough work that the Detroit Lions fans do, and that they deserve a winner. And now here he is delivering on his promise from 2 years ago. You said it yourself, right? His press conference was, I'm not going to bullshit you with this. We're going to win, blah, blah, blah. It fucking sucks. We suck right now. But if you guys just stay with me, we will get to the promised land. And I promise you that. They're going to have a tough competition next week against the 49ers. But really, it's the 2 best teams, I think, as well in this NFC Championship game right now with the 49ers and the Detroit Lions. These guys did extremely well against the Bucks. You mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs, 74 yards on 9 carries, scored a touchdown, especially with that 31-yard rush to break the tie in the fourth quarter. Amon-Ra St. Brown caught a touchdown and is easily becoming one of the most elite receivers in the NFL. He's got such strong hand. Him and Mike Evans catch everything. I'm a Bears fan, so I see a lot of DJ Moore, and I see that as well. DJ Moore catches everything. Amon-Ra St. Brown catches fucking everything and anything thrown within a 3, 4, 5 foot, area around his body. He catches that. And the fact that Jared Goff has him as a number 1, man, he's so lucky to have him, right? But the Lions did extremely well, man. The offensive line protected Goff all day. And then you go on the defensive side, and they had 4 sacks on Baker Mayfield. I went into this game in our predictions episode thinking this Bucs defensive line is going to get to Jared Goff. And the offensive line, they knew that shit too. They saw that game. They watched the film on what the defensive line was doing to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. And they're like, okay, we know exactly what we need to do to keep our guys safe, so there's no mistakes, so we keep this train rolling into the NFC Championship game, and they execute it, right? I remember hearing something about people don't, like you at work because you're the best dresser. because you're the funniest person, because you bring fucking donuts into the office or something. Do you execute? That is the question. And the Detroit Lions offensive line answered it with a fuck yeah, we do. We execute. And that's exactly what they did on Sunday. They executed against one of the toughest defensive lines in the NFL this year. And they made sure their guy, Jared Goff, was safe. They made sure, like you said, he looked calm, cool, collected, comfortable, didn't make any mistakes. No hurried offense on his end. They executed. That offensive line executed, and they deserve a huge pat on the back because just like the city of Detroit, those blue collar people, those guys that, fucking spend, one paycheck on a trip to Detroit, to Ford Field to watch the Lions play. The offensive line does not get a lot of credit, man, and they deserve a big pat on the back for this game for what they did. Obviously, we're going to talk about Jared Goff. Obviously, we're going to talk about the wide receivers and the running back, and we're going to talk about the defense, but the offensive line deserves a big pat on the back. Now, on the opposite side with Baker Mayfield, you said it, man. It's just he wasn't wanted anywhere. He was a victim of the Browns wanting Deshaun Watson, of being the number 1 overall pick, and being a bust or something that people were already trying to say about him, right? Too many commercials. He's doing too many commercials. And when he came into this year, we've talked about that as well. We didn't think he was going to be the starting quarterback. The Bucs already had a plan on who was going to be the starting quarterback. And now no one can remember the fucking name of the guy who was supposed to be the starting quarterback because of how well Baker Mayfield has played this year. He has easily played himself into another contract, whether it be with Tampa Bay or, anyone else, really. They'd be lucky to have Baker Mayfield on their team. I mean, fuck, I'll take him on the Bears. You know what I mean? Like, I'll fucking take him. But no, he played extremely well throughout the season, played extremely well these 2 games. And, unfortunately, a couple of mistakes got him some interceptions, and his defense wasn't able to stop the Lions when it mattered. And, him and Mike Evans connected. Trey Palmer was a huge weapon for him as well. Otten, his tight end, was also a big weapon for him and really becoming his favorite target. Tampa doesn't have a quarterback problem. What they have is a head coaching problem. And that's something that I had even talked about last week, where I was like, hey, maybe Todd Bowles, man. Maybe Todd Bowles is the head coach that everybody was looking for. With about 40 seconds left, the Lions made a huge mistake. Jared Goff was snapping the ball too early and kneeling down. He was leaving all the time in the world left on that clock. Todd Bowles and the Bucs had 1 timeout left. Yes, the Lions were at the Bucs 31, 32 yard line, wherever it was. And they had about a 49-ish, 45-ish yard field goal. If the Bucs decided to call the timeout and had them make a decision on 4th down, are we going to kick it? Are we going to go for it? But Todd Bowles' explanation for that was they already had a field goal lined up, and it would have been about 12 seconds left on the clock to end the ball game. We weren't going to come back from that. No sense in prolonging the obvious. That may go down as one of the dumbest fucking moves that Todd Bowles has done in a playoff game. To go home with a timeout in your pocket, knowing that Jared Goff is not letting the play clock go all the way down to 0 before snapping the ball and kneeling it, taking every single second off the clock, may go down as one of the dumbest head coaching decisions by Todd Bowles. Oh, I would have had 12 seconds left. What are you talking about, dude? They had kneeled the ball again on 3rd down with over 30 seconds left. You call that timeout, you put them in a corner. Do we go for it to get a 1st down and really end this game? Or do we go for a field goal to make this out of reach? Regardless, a 45-plus yard field goal for Badgley, by the way, who is their kicker, who was a guy that the Bears brought in for a week last year, who's not a big name kicker in this league. That's not an easy kick when it's like comes down to it. Dude, you got to make this kick to make it like unattainable for them to come back. If he doesn't, the Bucs have 30 seconds left to go downfield, try to get a touchdown, at least an attempt in a playoff game, knowing it's win or go home. That right there is going to go down as one of the dumbest moves by a head coach in a playoffs. And really, like, a lot of credit for Todd Bowles and what he did with this Buccaneers team, and hiring his OC Canales and what they were able to do with Baker. But in the playoffs, man, win or go home type of situation, and that's the decision you make, and that's the explanation you come out with.
Right.
That's stupid. That is just stupid.
Yeah, and I get it if there's a minute left and you have one timeout and it's first down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm going to call this timeout, but then they're going to take a knee and the game's over. I get that. But this is the playoffs. And we talked about how Baker's earned the future or a longer contract. And Todd Bowles was also somebody that we thought it's probably his last year with Tampa. And then this kind of playoff push happened. And we were like, maybe Todd Bowles and Baker are going to stick together. And then he doesn't call his timeouts. You know, they could have had the ball back with around 30 seconds left instead of 12. Totally insane. And they asked Dan Campbell about it, and he said, we didn't handle the whole thing well on our end. We should have bled the clock more than we did. I'll be the first to admit that, and that's on me. But yeah, we know that we had a timeout left. I could tell he wasn't going to call it. That's how it ended.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. That is crazy. And we saw LaFleur not call the timeout when the 49ers were bleeding the clock. They got a 90% chance of scoring. You know, the difference between offense and defense is when you're on defense and you don't call a timeout, they can take 40 seconds like the entire 40 seconds off. Okay. When you're on offense, let's say you throw a 10-yard completion. Even if it takes you 20 seconds to line up and snap the next ball, you save 20 seconds on offense versus defense.
Yeah.
So why do you want those timeouts on offense if you're only going to have 40 seconds to get down the field when you could have a little less than 2 minutes with no timeouts? We saw that these timeout and clock management, it was definitely an issue in multiple games this week.
Yeah, it just seems to be a huge issue in this playoffs. And one thing I did want to mention, you know, I kind of got a little negative there towards Todd Bowles, but one thing that I did want to point out, and Turbo, what's up, man? How's it going? Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely.
The running game in this playoffs was like amazing, right? Like Aaron Jones, we talked about, Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in this game. We also look at even, Lamar Jackson's quarterback, but he had 100 yards rushing. Like this weekend for the divisional round was huge for running backs and the running game in general. So I just wanted to put that note in there because I went in on Todd Bowles.
Yeah, I mean, as you should. And, he didn't really have a good explanation for it anyway, just repeated the same thing he said. So it is what it is. I'm more intrigued with Dan Campbell saying, I knew he wasn't going to call it. It's because he's already like a macho kind of guy. Yeah. And now it's like, I could see it in his eyes that he was fucking weak. It's like
that weak ass bitch wasn't going to call timeout on me.
He doesn't bite kneecaps. I knew he wasn't going to call it. I could smell it. I could smell the weakness, pheromones just coming off of him. I almost ate him.
He doesn't chew kneecaps. He has a hard time chewing gum, that motherfucker.
All right. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs is our fourth and final game that we will talk about. Buffalo, a year where we said this should be it, right? No expectations, getting hot at the right time. Josh Allen playing at an insane level, running, passing, defense, everything just seemed to be clicking. And when this game, as an observer in this game, it was similar to the Packers game where I felt like even when the Chiefs got a lead that it's only gonna, this was a lot of back and forth. I thought, well, Buffalo will pull off in the end because they're just the better team this year. But no, it doesn't happen that way. And the Chiefs get a win. Now, of course, this is another kicking thing, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Bass missed the field goal that kind of sealed the outcome of this game, but so did Stephon Diggs, right? Josh Allen throws an 80-yard bomb. That was an 80-yard pass, by the way.
Yeah.
80.
Oh my God.
That's an 80-yard pass that literally
with accuracy.
perfect. Now, I'm not gonna harp on it too much because like I understand that those are really hard to catch and it's just one play. But the problem is when you consider what happened last offseason, he needs to make this play, right? If you're gonna call your team out and want to be used more, like it's easy to go Tyler Bass. It's easy to go Diggs. You could go Josh Allen. Why is he taking shots to the end zone when they need a first down? That's all you need. You know the weather conditions aren't great. You know that you need to get a little bit closer, and instead you're taking 40-yard bombs to the end zone to just settle for a 40-some yard field goal.
Yeah.
Knowing that if he misses that kick, the game's over. That's what bothers me the most. It's not like they had 3 timeouts and they're like, well, we'll take a shot here. If we have to settle, we'll call our 3 timeouts. Like, this is the game, and it really did feel like Buffalo was a little too comfortable in this game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they just got, high, like off of the game. Like Josh Allen was just like fucking slinging it, baby. But once in a while, that check down would have saved your season. And it's literally the opposite of what you think when you think, what does a quarterback have to do to win the game? You would think of that 80-yard bomb to Stephon Diggs. And on the contrary, it's actually the 3-yard pass to the running back that would have probably at least tied the football game. Now, we'll never know what would have happened, but this game definitely a lot of back and forth. Josh Allen, PFF's highest graded quarterback during the regular season. He made 3 regular season, 3 big time throws, but there were 2 turnover worthy plays. Diggs, I mentioned the drop, but he was held to just 3 catches for 21 yards. That's not good enough. And Kansas City, they're playing really well right now, but what do you expect? Like they're veterans at this point. They know what it's like to be in these games. They have a winning quarterback, and that's really all he does. The Khalil Shakir in the last 10 Bills games has 462 yards. Stephon Diggs has 422. Okay, so Khalil Shakir has 40 yards more receiving, or 40 yards more. Yeah, it sounds weird. But he actually has only 37 targets in that 10-game span to Diggs' 80 targets.
Jesus.
And man, it was crazy. And like this is so personal. In 2021, Diggs stayed on the field during the Chiefs ceremony, the AFC Championship. He wanted to soak in that moment, and he had a chance, man, to come down with that ball, and he didn't. And it was another one of those where if nothing, this weekend reminded, I think, everybody that the margin of winning and losing in the NFL is 1 or 2 plays, and a couple first downs, managing your timeouts. Everything matters. That's why when you come out of halftime and you burn a timeout, it's a bad look, because it's like, that every little thing matters in football. And it felt like the Bills just didn't make those right decisions late in the game in order to win this. Patrick Mahomes, he had a decent game. He had 19 yards on the ground, and for throwing, he had 215 yards. Nothing crazy, but he did have a rating of 131.6 to Josh Allen's 86.1. So if you're just looking at that, but the Bills threw almost twice as much. And the real story is just how good Isaiah Pacheco has been for Kansas City.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, things are a little bit different. Like, we go all season going, this isn't the Mahomes and the Chiefs that we know and love. Not me, but most of the people, right? But then we're like, wait a second. Well, what is Kansas City? They have a really good defense. Has Mahomes ever had a really good defense? And the answer is no. And it's like, wait, this should be his best year, but the offense just couldn't get it together. So the defense holding people to, less than 20 points, around 20, and the offense was losing more games than I think Mahomes has ever lost in a regular season. And all of a sudden, what was a weakness is a positive. And now we're sitting here like, wait, so Mahomes has never had a running back as good as Pacheco. He's never had a defense as good as the defense. And now the offense is clicking. It looks like Rashee Rice has kind of turned a page. Marquez Valdez-Scantling came into the game and made a couple big plays. Noah Gray's getting open. McCole Hardman. Like, these are just guys, but at the right time, everything clicked. And what we said 4 weeks ago about Kansas City being the worst Kansas City team that Mahomes has ever been on, you could make a real argument right now, today, 4 weeks later, that this is the best Chiefs team Mahomes has ever had. Just because it doesn't result in 40 points per game does not mean that this is not the most complete Chiefs team that they've ever been. And that's kind of misleading when you only look at points. There's so much more about what Kansas City's doing this year that they didn't have in the past. And that, I think that's what makes them so lethal, because it's you take a lot of the weight off Mahomes, but when it's time for him to take that weight, he's the greatest quarterback maybe all time. So of course he can pick up that backpack. Like, I look at Kansas City right now and I can understand why they won this game. I still do feel like Buffalo could have won this game, though. I think they were playing better. I think they're the better team for the most part in this game. Shakir, James Cook is kind of the same thing. Like, we're talking about the same thing with both teams. Mahomes has never had Pacheco. Josh Allen's never had a guy like James Cook this year. He's never had a tight end like Dalton Kincaid, who had 45 yards and 5 receptions on all 5 of his targets. Diggs had a really crummy game, but Latavius Murray was also taking that Samaje Perine role like we talked about. So Buffalo and Kansas City, both teams that were like 6-6 in the middle of the season, we thought there was massive flaws with them. It turns out we're wrong, and that these two teams may literally be the opposite of what we thought. They might both be the most complete team that these quarterbacks have ever been on. I think that's why it was a great game. It went back and forth. It kind of had that 2021 feel, but late in the game, we went to a commercial break. I'm like, Buffalo scores. Kansas City's going to kick a field goal over. It's like, I started getting too ahead of myself. The game was over 4 plays after that commercial break. This game ended quick. And I'll ask you, do you think the better team won this game?
Honestly, yes. Honestly, 100% yes. And this is like the opposite of the 49ers Packers game, which takes right, like the better team in that game did not win, which was the Packers. In this game, the better team did win in the Kansas City Chiefs. Similar to what happened in 2021 in that division playoff, one of the greatest playoff games, I think, that'll go down in this generation, right? McDermott and his offensive play caller, Joe Brady, they got conservative, man. Not on the defense like in 2021, but on the offense. Just like you said at the beginning of you breaking down what the game was. You went for a field goal. You went deep, underthrowing people, not really going for that first down, but for that field goal. That's what you went for? You're at home. You're at home and you've got a much better offense, given the level playing field in the running game. Like, you've got a much better offense than you did in 2021. And your goal in that drive was to get a field goal. That is not it. That is coaching scared. One of the things that I remember saying in around halftime, we were talking about the game and the teams, and we were just saying, what's your take on at the halftime? And I was like, you know what? The Bills right now are playing well-balanced football. And they should continue to do it because at that point, they had the lead. They came out in the third quarter, scored a touchdown. I was like, they got to keep doing it. At one point, though, those minutes, those 30 minutes you have left turn into 5.5, turn into 6 minutes. And now you're like, all right, James Cook, we love you and what you've been able to do. But Josh Allen, we need you to fucking sling it, get first downs, either with your arm or with your legs. One of the two. And in that last drive, Tyler Bass, probably a good kicker, got extended in the preseason before this season to 5 years or whatever it was, $12.4 million guaranteed. The kicker, like, why are you putting your entire chips on the table on the fucking leg of your kicker? I can see how you are showing trust in Tyler Bass kicker. You got Josh fucking Allen as your quarterback, man. What are you doing? Get those first downs. Get into the end zone. There's plenty of time. But you want to play it safe and tie the game to go into overtime. Bad fucking strategy. Teams like that do not win Super Bowls. Teams like that do not get into Super Bowls. Teams like that, windows close a lot quicker than you would assume. So McDermott, Joe Brady, I don't know exactly who had the say in that last drive, but that was not the correct decision. Just like Todd Bowles had that stupid decision to not call his timeouts because we'd have 12 seconds left, mathematically impossible, by the way, with a play clock. This was a bad decision by that entire coaching staff on the Bills for that offense to just go out there and basically give up. That's exactly what you saw, man. And in the moment, we get caught up and we're like, oh shit, they're going for the tie. They're not getting a first down. But we're also, we have the luxury of taking a step back and being like, what the fuck were you thinking, dude? 39-yard, 41-yard, whatever it was, the field goal, wide right. The two worst words in Buffalo Bills history, wide right. So, I don't know, man. Conservative, sorry, I can't talk today. Conservative play calling on that final drive is what killed them. It is what absolutely killed them. So McDermott and the coaching staff has to look at what they did in that final play, call some better plays, man. Like you said, maybe a 3-yard dump off to the running back gets you in the touchdown, gets you closer, gets you inside the red zone, man. Like something other than that bullshit that you called. Now, and really for 3 quarters, this was a very neck and neck game, man. Up until the fourth quarter, the Bills didn't score in the fourth quarter at all. They did not score one single point in the fourth quarter. And that's where the Chiefs won. That's why I think the better team won today, because the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Andy Reid, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, all these guys came up huge for this Chiefs team. The defense, Chris Jones waving bye to the Buffalo Bills Mafia fans, getting snow and ice pelted at them, which, by the way, again, Bills Mafia, come on. These guys are human beings, man. These guys are fucking human beings. You take a piece of ice, a thick enough piece of ice to the dome, that's just not right, man. Like, I get it, you're drunk. It's still not right. Does not matter. Not right. So, again, I think Mahomes and we said he's never had a running back like this. He's never had a defense like this. This is probably one of the more complete teams, and it is the Chiefs getting into the playoffs and seeing what happens. And they're dominating again, man. Chiefs might sneak into the Super Bowl again, dude. And really, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs somehow get in there because, like you said, Kyle, you mentioned it. They are battle proven. They've got a coach been there before. They have a quarterback who's been there before. They have a ton of young talent that won the Super Bowl last year, that wants to win a second consecutive Super Bowl. They got all the reason in the world to make it again, man. So you can't do that conservative shit against a team like that because they will win 100 out of 100 times. And just like this rivalry in the playoffs between the Bills and the Chiefs are undefeated against the Bills in the playoffs.
There was a good point Crafty made here. The 2019 Super Bowl winning team had a great defense over the second half of the season. They held the Niners scoreless in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, which I think is actually a very good indication of what I was trying to say about Kansas City being the most complete team, because that team was seventh in points against, in second in points for in 2019. But this season, Kansas City is second in points against. They are the second best defense. So but now add this in, they're 15th offensively. So they have the best defense that they've ever had, and the offense is around 15th. Their defense is only giving up 17.3 points per game this year, and their offense is scoring 21.8. So there's some similarities, but missing the explosive offense that they had in that 2019 season.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because nobody was thinking, I mean, maybe some people were, but it just didn't seem like this was their year, right? It felt like the Tyreek Hill thing maybe caught up with them. Like they needed to make a move for a great receiver that they didn't have. And all of a sudden things are looking a lot better for them. But in that 2019 season, points against 19.3, so 2 more points, but they were averaging 28.2 points offensively. So you have a 9-point differential between points for and points against versus this year, where you got like 5 points between them, which is maybe even less. So the games are a lot closer, right? Let's see. So they had 21 points for this year, 17 against. So yeah, you have 4 points in between versus that 10 in 2019. So yeah, man, I agree with everything that you said about that game. I it's disappointing for Buffalo, because it really did feel like not only was this their year, but the fact that their home crowd was going to get to see it. This game wasn't in Arrowhead where they could, be happy but away from the game. This was this could have been an amazing party, an amazing atmosphere. Josh Allen would have just been okay, we don't have to worry about him anymore. But instead,
the bad man's gone.
Instead, you're left with a serious question. What did the Bills have to do to make it to the Super Bowl? Like, what is it? It can't be weapons. It can't be the quarterback. It can't be the running back. It's not the defense. What is that thing? And how do we solve it? And this reminds me of the same direction. They're not there yet, but very similar to the Cowboys, right? You got the coach, the quarterback, the weapons. Why can't we win? What is it? And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, dude, this one's gonna sting. I mean, divisional round is a tough time to lose because you're only a game away from being a game away, and this one sucks. This was the only home loss this weekend, right? Baltimore won, 49ers won, and Detroit
the Lions won.
So credit Kansas City for being the only team to win this game, but Kansas City was favored to win. Kansas City was the favorite.
And they did it.
They
fucking did it.
Off. No, one other thing that's really interesting, not for Von Miller, but Von Miller was paid $14.9 million this season and finished with 0 sacks and 5 tackles in 14 games played. He made $2.98 million a tackle.
Wow.
And the Broncos, man, I still think he's got football. I'm not going to talk bad about him. I love him, but that's rough, man. That's rough. When you pay that kind of money and that's the kind of output you get, it hurts. It hurts the team financially. It hurts the team defensively. So if you guys haven't heard the Korean broadcast of the Chiefs Bills ending, it was perfect. Go ahead and give it a listen. Yeah. It was literally just raw emotion, but
go check out our short too that we put out about that game and all the other games in the divisional round.
Yes.
And I want to end this off too, at least on my part, with one more really cool little stat here. Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, scored 9 points against the Bills. He now has 140 points in his postseason career. That is good enough for sixth most in the NFL, and he passes Jerry Rice, who was previously ranked sixth with 132 points. Harrison Butker, man, fucking good for him, dude. Good for Harrison Butker. Sixth all time in postseason history with 140 points.
A lot of that has to do with his quarterback being in every post game, every single playoff game for the last 6 years, pretty much.
He's made some clutch field goals and a lot of extra points.
Isn't it crazy to think about? Patrick Mahomes in the last 6 years has only missed 2 playoff games.
It's ridiculous, dude. It's like the amount of success he has had in such a short period of time. I think you said it in one of the earlier episodes from last week or something. He's already on a Tom Brady level. He's already there. He doesn't have the rings, but my God, the postseason success he's had in 6-7 seasons, whatever it is, it's just outstanding. It's just outstanding.
He's going to go down as probably the GOAT, honestly.
Yeah.
But the clock starts.
Yeah, he probably will be. You have anything else on this game?
Oh yeah. So the Josh Allen comment after the game. So they asked him for a third time Sunday. Buffalo's title window became a topic of conversation again. Josh Allen thinks it's totally irrelevant, and he said, "No, not at all." Talking about Buffalo's title window being gone, he said he's not worried about the window being closed. I believe in what we got going on here and the people that are in charge. I believe in myself, and that will never change, which is a very similar thing that Joe Burrow said when he said, when they asked him, what's your Super Bowl window? And he said, my career is our window.
Yes.
And Josh Allen's definitely, although he doesn't have the Super Bowl, and this is going to sound, probably I'm going to get attacked for this, but I think Josh Allen's already better than Ben Roethlisberger. I know Ben Roethlisberger won a Super Bowl in his second year. I know that he won another Super Bowl in 2009, 2010. But just, I think the overall team was better that he was on. And look, if they don't have the coach right, that's something worth noting, because Mike Tomlin, we know that he's a great coach and all of that, especially when he's winning those Super Bowls. But that argument's not going to hold up until Josh Allen wins the Super Bowl. And the thing about saying, it's going to happen when we least expect it, but we want to anticipate it, kind of like, it's almost like, I feel like we kind of want that for him just to get the monkey off his back.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we have to wait a full year for him to even have a possibility to do that. And that's what hurts the most, I think. Last year when the 49ers lost in the NFC Championship game, I watched that post-game press conference with Kyle Shanahan, and he started talking about, it's time to start scouting people and going through these off-season, the roster. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy that you were literally 60 minutes away from the Super Bowl, and now less than 30 minutes after the game, you have to completely shift your focus to the offseason. That's just an insane part of the job, right? You're thinking everything's going to work out, and then you wake up tomorrow and there's no more football. That's it. And that's what separates the NFL from basketball. There's only one game, and Kansas City got the win.
Kansas City got the win indeed. And guys, that was our divisional round recap. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys are in the chat right now, please make sure to drop a like in our live stream. Help us out a ton. And, continue to get us noticed by the NFL, which, by the way, Kyle, cool fucking moment. Whoever was in here during our live streams, that was a cool moment. At one point, Kyle and I were like, all right, we're going to go in and raid somebody. Next thing I know, I see a comment and the icon is the NFL shield. And I was like, I can't tell on StreamYard, which we use. It doesn't have like a verified thing or anything, but I open up our stream on YouTube, on the YouTube app, and I look at the live chat, and I was like, that's the fucking NFL. That is the NFL on our stream. And like Crafty said, that was just a badass moment. So please make sure to drop a like on this video, Kyle.
It reminded me of when Chance the Rapper got Lil Wayne to do a song with him. It was like, oh, he did it.
Yeah, or when Kanye like shouted him out at a concert, and he's like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
Kyle made an entire post about it on X, so make sure to go check it out. But Kyle, how awesome was that moment, dude?
Dude, it was probably right there with Tom Grassi raid as like the greatest moment. The only difference is like Tom Grassi is a NFL streamer, so in the world, now that we're kind of more into this world, I see that it's not uncommon. Like, how many people have we rated that are like, Tom Grassi rated me, now you guys?
Yeah,
it seems like almost every person was recently rated. So not to say that it's less special, but definitely less unique. The NFL coming in, though, to me, that's just a whole different thing. Like, that's not what they do, right? They're not raiders. And maybe a lot of people were getting raided by the NFL. Maybe that's something they're going to start doing. I'm not sure. But when I saw that logo pop up, man, I was just, there's no words. Like it's one of those, like, I really don't have the words to even say what it meant, but it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up, and it was the last thing I thought about when I was going to sleep. And it was just a little thing. I feel like, the universe, whatever you want to call it, just a little nugget to say, you guys are on the right track. And here's a reward for your hard work. And don't think that what you guys are doing isn't going towards something, right?
Yeah. 100% could not have said it any better, because like you said, it really just kind of reinforces the fact that what we're doing right now, face to face, on to have the league YouTube page come onto our stream and say, keep up the good work, this is a good stream, or whatever it is they said keep up the good work. And just to be like, they notice us. We have our small community here on the Only Football Podcast, but the fact that they notice us, it's just, like Kyle said, it just makes it seem like this work we're doing is not insignificant at all.
And dude, like I told Rick this, like, my whole life, it was like playing football, watching football, and playing Madden. Like, that's it. Like, it was 24/7. I was obsessed with it. And Kevin Walter being a family friend, a white wide receiver, I was literally like, oh my God, like, I want to do this as a career. I used to go over to my brother and be like, quiz me, and we would put NFL Network on, and there would be a player, whatever game was on, and he would say like the number in the team and see if I could guess the name of the player.
Oh, nice.
And I knew almost every player, and I was a kid, man. And just to like see the NFL like come into our stream it's kind of like a full circle moment. It's like you invest your whole life into something, and until we started this podcast, really had nothing to show for it. It was like, I dedicate a ton of time to this, but it doesn't, like, it gives me I guess entertainment, but I didn't feel like until we started this podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, now all the football I'm watching, like, it goes towards something. Like, now it's like I'm building building my knowledge and building this podcast with you at the same time. So for the NFL to hop in, it was full circle. I could never imagine, if you would have told me when I was 12, right, and I was learning all of those football players, like, before you turn 30, you are going to have the NFL come in. And I know the NFL like went into a lot of different things, but it doesn't matter. Like, if we're
doesn't make it less special.
if we're one of 100, that means we're one of 100 out of millions of people and thousands of channels. So it's so cool that they decided to pick us out of all the channels that they could have. I could understand them going into Tom Grassi streams. You got 50,000 people in there.
Yeah.
But for him to come into our, like you said, we have a small community right now. But it really showed, like, it was great from the PR team or whatever, because they're not just like after the big fish. They also took the time to come into a stream that had 12 to 15 people in there. Insane.
Yeah. And Matthew Plummer, Jordan Love is Rick's dad. Glad to see he agreed with the head nod. Daddy lost. Dad lost. He's not in the playoffs no more. But okay. Thank you guys again for listening to us talk, because we enjoyed so much. Make sure to throw a like in the live stream. But let's move on, Kyle, to a somewhat of a negative segment, but not really in a bad way. Get off the bus. Get off the bus. We're going to go through each divisional game and talk about our player that did not get off the bus, that did not perform well in their respective games. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about each one. And we're going to start off with the Texans versus the Ravens. Kyle, do you want me to go first on this one, or would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. For me, who am I screaming get off the bus to? Devin Singletary. 22 yards on 9 attempts. We were talking all sorts of good stuff about Devin Singletary, how he had a bad gig, a bad rap with the Buffalo Bills, wasn't really used great effectively. They also had Zach Moss, who is now killing it in Indianapolis. So really, we're looking at it like, oh, it's the Bills' fault. They didn't use them correctly. The offensive coordinator, the whole game plan didn't use them correctly. They each go to another team and they're balling out. But Devin Singletary in this game, yes, you're going up against one of the best defenses in the Ravens, against the run, and just really, in general as a defense. But 22 yards on 9 attempts, man, you got to get some stuff going. You got to establish that run game. You are the player out there on the field. You got to make some guys miss. I understand it's difficult, but Devin Singletary, get off the bus.
Get off the bus. And, my guy is going to be somebody that I believe in long-term. But it's going to be CJ Stroud. You know what? In reality, it's a tough segment because you could almost say the Houston Texans get off the bus, right? Because the offensive line was atrocious, right? So it seemed like CJ Stroud never had time. He was not comfortable, and no wonder they couldn't run the football. In a big way, I really think that the offensive line is responsible for a lot. But I'm going to go with CJ Stroud because he played Cleveland's defense last week. And you saw, even when he was under pressure, he was able to buy time and deliver good balls. And if he had to run, he did. This game, he only had 9 yards rushing. So he was not even able to turn them rushing into a net gain, and I felt like CJ Stroud just didn't show up to this game in the way that we actually, in just his rookie year, maybe we took it for granted, but you get used to certain players showing up, right? I thought if Baltimore wins this game, I think that the Texans are going to probably be into a close battle, but they didn't have a single offensive touchdown in the game. When things are going right, we crown the quarterback. And when you don't have a single offensive touchdown, then we got to bring that same energy when that goes down. And I think CJ Stroud, less than 200 yards passing, no touchdowns. He didn't throw a pick, but he didn't make any type of those plays that you come to expect from somebody that performed as well as he did last week. It's almost like So it just didn't even look like the same team.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is credit to the Baltimore's defense. But like I said, Cleveland's got a good defense too, and the Texans were able to tear them apart. Joe Flacco had a couple pick sixes that Lamar didn't throw, but it really did feel like there was only one quarterback that was making meaningful contributions to their team.
CJ Stroud, get off the bus.
Get off the bus.
All right, let's move into the Packers at the San Francisco 49ers. This game featured a lot of good offense. You see Crafty's coming. This game featured a lot of good offense on both sides of the ball. What was the big difference in this game, Kyle? The Green Bay Packers defense. Green Bay Packers defense needed to get off the bus. You had 2 picks in your hands.
Oh, okay.
You had a guaranteed pick 6, and you couldn't come away with the turnovers. The 49ers did, and they ended up scoring, and the second interception ended up being the game-sealing interception. The Packers have to do that. They have to be able to take those opportunities when they're given. You mentioned it earlier. Juszczyk, the fullback, was the only one in front of or between Darnell Savage and the goal line. You could have easily gotten past Juszczyk. You got to take those opportunities when they're presented. You got to get in the end zone. You got to put your team on top. The Green Bay defense was playing amazing at the end of the season, got into the playoffs in week 18, killed the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, Kyle. The Dallas Cowboys. And you go into this game and you don't take the opportunities when presented to you. Green Bay defense, get off the bus.
All right. I am going to go with a winning football team. I'm not going with the loser here.
Yep.
Brock Purdy, brother, get off the bus. Get off the bus. He was clearly outplayed in this game. Now, let me just show you something, okay? Jaden Reed had 4 targets in the game by Love. He also had 4 catches. Melton, he had 1 target. He had 1 catch. Musgrave had 4 targets. He had 3 catches. Christian Watson, 2 targets, 1 catch. Pretty much you're seeing 85% of the targets are actually receptions. The worst one is Romeo Doubs, 6 targets, 4 catches. That's not bad at all. You go to the 49ers, dude, and you got George Kittle, 7 targets, 4 catches. You got 12 targets on CMC. He only caught 7 of them. You got a couple that aren't so bad, but when you look at why were there all these targets and not catches, it's because he was wildly inaccurate in this game. Wildly. I mean, how many times did we see him throw and we just were like, what's wrong with him? What is he doing?
What the fuck you doing? Yeah.
Where did Brock Purdy go? And that is exactly what this is all about. Brock Purdy, where did he go? He didn't get off the bus. He's still on the bus. That is not Brock Purdy out there. Brock Purdy is a different player that is really accurate. That's one of his things. He can roll out. He probably is more athletic than he gets credit for. But as far as being a quarterback, Jordan Love looked miles better than Brock Purdy looked in this game. So although the 49ers end up with the win, Brock Purdy's the one that needed to get off the bus. And especially if they're going to have to continue without Deebo Samuel. If you got to continue without Deebo and you don't have Trent Williams and like Brock, you can't be the guy that doesn't get off the bus next week.
Brock, get off the bus.
Get off the bus.
All right. Let's move into the Bucks at Lions game. We talked a little bit about, the game earlier, and I think Crafty is going to love this one for me. But offensive line from the Tampa Bay Bucks, get off the fucking bus. You let Baker Mayfield get sacked 4 times. You let him go under pressure almost all game. You don't do anything in the run game. You don't let Rashad White do his thing. And there you go, Bucks O-line coach for Crafty. You don't let the Rashad White, the running game, go do anything all game. Bucks offensive line, get off the bus. Tristan Wirfs is probably the only one who is allowed to be told that he was off the bus, because he definitely showed up. But 55 yards for Rashad White, 19 yards for Edmonds in the rushing game. The pass pro wasn't bad, but I mean, come on, you got to do better than that, Bucks O-line. Get off the bus.
Get off the bus. All right. Are you ready for mine?
I'm ready.
I also have the offensive. No, I'm kidding. We can't do that.
I've got Baker Mayfield. No.
Baker just didn't show up for this one. This is a tough one. This is a tough one for me because you mentioned the offensive line, but this offensive line's been bad all year. 31st ranked rushing team in the league.
Yeah.
And that's why Baker has to have 3 touchdowns and 350 yards. In order to keep the segment fun, it's good not to disagree, but how challenging is this? Who would you say, besides the offensive line, didn't get off the bus? I can't think of anybody.
I really can't. Yeah.
Baker played well. Mike Evans went off. Auden had a good game. Or Odin. I think it's Auden.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin had contributions. Like Trey Palmer was involved. I think everybody played pretty well. I think Tampa Bay definitely got off the bus, but that offensive line, hate to be the boring guy that agrees, but it's the only part of either team that didn't get off the bus.
100% agree with that. And I mean, it turned that very close game into like almost out of reach, really, right? So let's move on to Chiefs at Bills. One of the heartbreaking losses in this weekend, the only team to lose at home in the divisional round. So for me, it's got to go to Tyler Bass. It's got to go to Tyler Bass, the kicker for the Bills. Tyler Bass, get off the bus. You get told that you're going out there for a possible field goal and you miss it in the most Buffalo Bills way possible, wide right. How dare you? Bills Mafia is just, oh my God, they're throwing ice everywhere. They're going crazy. They're crying at home. They're crying in the stadium. Wide right, the 2 worst words in Bills history. And that's the kick you make, Tyler Bass. Get off the bus, Tyler Bass. What are you doing?
Wasn't there a play late in the game by a Chief that fumbled? He could have potentially been because he only came in because who was it? Somebody got hurt. It was Rice. It was Rice.
It was Rice. It was Rice.
He got banged up. A Chief came into the game, got the ball right away, and fumbled it, creating a touchback. That game could have even pulled away there. I could go with that guy. I'm going to go with the one and true only option, in my opinion, Stephon Diggs. Get off the bus, dude. You are the one guy that has to get off the bus. You have put yourself in this situation. You have complained about the front office. You've complained about not getting looks. You complained about targets, not having a bigger role in the team. And you know what? When your team it goes beyond the 80-yard pass. Like if you drop the ball on an 80-yard pass, that hurts, especially when the Bills probably could have won the game with that. I mean, there was time left, but that was a huge play. But 3 catches, 3. He had 3 catches on the entire game. We're talking about 2 years ago. This is like the obvious number 1 receiver in the league. Even last year, it's like, oh, he's still really, really good. And the dude comes away with 3 catches. Noah Gray came into this game with the over-under 6.5 receiving yards, and Noah Gray had as many catches as Stephon Diggs had in this game. That is completely unacceptable. That is a person that isn't even on the field for the same percentage of plays that Stefon Diggs is. And you know what? That's fine, because as much as we've given Stefon Diggs a hard time when, he just is like, I want to be more involved. And it's like, dude, but look, all the other receivers are doing well. And that's one thing. But Diggs didn't even contribute to this game, it felt like. By the way, two of those catches were behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't know if you want to talk about the offensive coordinator. I don't know. This thing runs probably a little bit deeper than just Diggs based on the routes I was seeing. But when they called on him, when they needed a play, he did not show up. And that is what the segment's all about. If Diggs gets off the bus, there's a chance Buffalo's going to Baltimore next weekend. But you cannot have a top 5 wide receiver finish with as much yards as Noah Gray. You can't have a guy as good as him go seamlessly unnoticed in the game. It was there wasn't any play where you're like, there he is. He is. There's Diggs. No. And even one of he had a 1 carry for 7 yards. I'll throw that out there. Yeah. But Diggs, man, your team of all games, of all moments, of all time in your entire career, you are the Minneapolis Miracle hero. You are the guy that took your helmet off and launched it. And I still get chills when I see that play. Same. You are the guy that always gets off the bus. And this is the biggest moment of your career, probably. And you did not get off the bus. Stefon Diggs, get off the bus.
Get off the bus.
Get off the bus. There we go.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I kind of like that one. I think we might make that a regular season thing next year.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. All right. Now let's do a little bit of a NFL news roundup. Just a lot of things have happened over the last couple weeks. Obviously, playoffs are the big one, right? Obviously, playoffs are the big one. Kyle's laughing at this one right here. I hope Kincaid didn't end up being coached by Dable one day, so Kyle's head can explode. Shakir. Who else?
Is it Kincaid Dabble? Boom. Where do you go?
Let's talk about some hirings and some possible firings, kind of looking into the future, Kyle, about what might happen to some of these coaches that have lost, that have not really lived up to expectations. And one for me, I guess I'll start. The Bears have hired offensive coordinator from the Seahawks, Shane Waldron. This is the guy in Seattle who took Geno Smith and made him a Pro Bowler last year. Had one of the higher, I think highest actually, quarterback completion percentages last year in the NFL. This is a second-round pick, Geno Smith, made the playoffs coming into the Seahawks team who just got rid of Russell Wilson, who didn't really have any sort of plan moving forward. They thought maybe Geno Smith was going to be just this guy that was a quarterback that's going to be in for a year. Instead, he gets turned into a Pro Bowler by Shane Waldron. And let's see some stats here. Geno Smith stats under Seahawks. Shane Waldron since 2022, 67.4 completion percentage, better, good enough for 4th. Passing yards, 7,900, for good enough for 6th. Passing touchdowns, 50, tied for 6th in the NFL. Touchdown to interception ratio, good enough for 10th, 50 and 20. And the passer rating, 96.8. which is good enough for 9th in the league since 2022. Obviously, it's only been 2 seasons. So, we can also pump the brakes on what's going to happen. But this is super important for 2 things, 2 possibilities. One, for Justin Fields to get a guy who's been able to prove that he's taking someone who's already had a 10-year career and turn him into a Pro Bowler. Turn him into someone who is throwing a ton of touchdowns, create an offense around that player and their strengths, or be the offensive coordinator for Caleb Williams if the Bears decide to take him with the first overall pick. So Shane Waldron is OC.
Rick wants
I'm excited.
Justin Fields out.
I'm excited to see what happens. I really am. Justin Fields, obviously, was someone that I really truly believed in. I was so happy when the Bears drafted him 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. But Shane Waldron, whichever route Ryan Poles decides to go to with Shane Waldron, I think will be the correct one. Shane Waldron has proven that he can do this for a quarterback in an offense. And I just hope, I pray that Shane Waldron can do the same thing in Chicago with what's going on with everything that has gone on for Chicago for 40-ish years now. So I'm praying that's one of the big ones, obviously on my radar because it involves the Bears, but that is one thing that I definitely was looking at this week.
And that the thing is I would say most of the time when a new coach comes in, as long as that coach hasn't utterly failed somewhere else, it's all upside. It's all upside.
Mm-hmm.
There's another ripple effect kind of going on in the league right now. So Nick Saban retires from college football. We talked about that.
Yeah.
And I talked to my buddy who's nearly a college football expert about this. I didn't actually call him to talk about this, but that's what our conversation turned into because he was really excited to tell me really what this means for Alabama and how mediocre they're going to be immediately.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't know that much about college, so I'm always willing to listen, but I could tell clearly based on what he told me on the phone in this news that exactly what he's trying to say is coming true. And that is the domino effect from Nick Saban's retirement, which includes the Cleveland Browns making a hire. And it's going to be Tommy Rees from the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, to do that, the team let go of offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, running backs coach Stump Mitchell, and tight ends coach TC McCartney. They're looking for fresh ideas, new perspective for maximizing the talent that they have in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
The first edition of the staff seems to be close, as reports say the Browns will hire Tommy Rees as the new tight end coach. So Rees, his role with the team may be more than just tight ends. He is also expected to help with the passing offense. The most intriguing part of the hire is that the work he did with mobile quarterback Jalen Milroe with Alabama this year. So he's actually very comfortable and used to coaching up a player that is as mobile as Deshaun Watson. Stefanski, he's shown the willingness to grow and make changes to his coaching staff, even when that's admitting he got it wrong the first time, because, this is also a huge thing I wanted to mention, because a lot of times, right, a coaching staff, any head coach, he comes in, he cleans house. I don't even think I can think of one time where a coach comes in, he's like, I actually like this staff. For example, Evero, our defensive coordinator last year, who was amazing, Sean Payton got the job. He wasn't here. That's just the way it goes. A lot of times you got loyalty issues. The coordinators are too loyal to the previous head coach to stay. Both parties normally just kind of scatter. But Stefanski gets hired last year and he makes all these hires, right? And in just one season, in a season that he made the playoffs, he's willing to say, I made some wrong hires. I'm willing to say I got it wrong the first time and bring in new coaches who can help him take over his offense to fully capitalize on Watson. I think this is a great hire for Cleveland. It sucks if you're an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, but I think he's going to be doing a lot more than coaching tight ends. But hats off to Stefanski for caring more about the team than his ego.
Yeah. You always love when a coach does that. And the guy taking over the Alabama head coaching job, by the way, the same guy who took the Washington Huskies, I believe, to the national championship this past season. I forget his name, but he was the University of Washington head coach, and he's going to Alabama. He's going to be the head coach. And I just think it's crazy because yes, it's the SEC. Yes, it's Alabama. It is probably one of those big jobs that you want. The pressure that comes along with it. I thought he had a really good thing here in UW. You're going into the Big Ten next year. The Pac-12 is dissolved. You're going into the conference that just won the national title. You've got a ton of respect as a head coach now at the University of Washington. You're going to be able to bring a ton of players in through the transfer portal and through the NIL stuff. You could have built around there. Instead, now you got a lot of pressure. It's an awesome dream job. I'm sure that was probably something on his radar, to get hired to be the Alabama head coach. But I really thought he had a really good thing here in UW. So his decision, not mine, but the pressure that comes along with it is huge. And I've got one more for myself. Obviously, we already know the Patriots. A mutual parting of ways between Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and the New England Patriots organization. They hired Gerard Mayo not long after, the press conference, probably either the same day or the next day when they announced it. And Gerard Mayo and the Patriots, Kyle, they have $66 million in projected salary cap space for 2024, which is the fourth most. They also hold the number 3 overall pick in the draft. So looking at it, from the outside, you assume they're going to get their quarterback in the draft at number 3 overall. But with that $66 million, Gerard Mayo said he's going to burn some cash to restock the New England's roster this offseason and some notable free agents moving forward. One that you really like, Kyle.
How are we gonna know if he's a better coach if he adds a bunch of talent?
Oh, shut up.
No, he's got to keep the team exactly the way they are, and we got to see how he does. Because if Belichick,
I don't want to hear
if Belichick wasn't good enough. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Gerard Mayo's gonna get fired.
No, I'm not saying that.
But there's some very interesting free agents moving forward, and one of them, T. Higgins, Kyle, one that you really love, T. Higgins. Wide receiver currently for the Bengals. Obviously, their season is over. 25 years old. But they just paid Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase is clearly the number 1. T. Higgins might want to go to a very solid franchise in the New England Patriots. You get a rookie quarterback. Sorry. You get a rookie quarterback. You become that guy's number 1. You do have some pieces there. You got Ramondre Stevenson. You got an offensive line that is definitely on the up and up. But you've got Gerard Mayo, a guy who played under Belichick, coached under Belichick, may not be the Belichick Patriot way, but he's going to continue those winning ways. So T. Higgins may be interested in coming over. Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd, another one that you really like. Dalton Schultz, Houston tight end. Connor Williams, an offensive lineman. L'Jarius Sneed, cornerback for Kansas City. A lot of very intriguing candidates for that Patriots team. Yeah,
and I think, mark my words. Okay, no, I'm kidding.
Mark them.
Look, you talk about Gerard Mayo, and you said it's not going to be the Patriot way, nor should it. It shouldn't be the Patriot it shouldn't be Bill Belichick's way. This will only work if it's Gerard Mayo's way. And the cool thing is, make no mistake, Bill Belichick, Hall of Fame, maybe the greatest head coach ever. So the opportunity to sit behind him and make, critical decisions about, hey, I like this about Belichick. Hey, this works. Hey, the players respond to this. And then also a huge part of that is, hey, this didn't work. Hey, when Belichick comes in with no emotions, the players don't feel excited to play. He's going to be able to take the good stuff that Belichick did and apply it and what he thinks could be done different. And that's going to be the Gerard Mayo way. But yeah, I think the Patriots are definitely in line for a much needed boost, maybe similar to what the Houston Texans got. I don't want to put that out there because the Texans and CJ Stroud's so rare, but maybe like what the Colts were able to do this year. Maybe a team like that playing competitive football late in the season. I have another coach hire.
Mm-hmm.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. They have hired Ryan Nielsen as their new defensive coordinator. Now, Jacksonville, disappointing season. Doug Peterson, if you go to jacksonville.com, Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a whole article about it. But this is what head coach Peterson said. He said, "We're excited to welcome Ryan and have him lead our defense moving forward. Ryan is an outstanding football coach, and his defenses with the Falcons and Saints were always fundamentally sound and in both their physicality and their concepts." Nielsen, who spent his first year as a defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, was one of the Jaguars' early targets before the Falcons blocked their interview request. Last week, the Falcons lifted that restriction, ultimately leading to Nielsen becoming Peterson's new defensive coordinator. So this is somebody that the Jags had their eyes on. This is somebody they wanted. Atlanta said, "Hey, like, no, you can't talk to him right now." And now they finally like, "All right, you can talk to him," and they hired him immediately. So Nielsen's been in the NFL since 2017 when the Saints hired him from NC State. And after 4 years with the Saints as a defensive line coach, he was promoted to assistant head coach in 2021, then co-defensive coordinator in 2022. He was looked at by LSU as a defensive coordinator candidate in 2021. So that's part of building these teams is not just getting let's get Bill Belichick in here. Let's get Vic Fangio. Who are the new, the fresh blood? Let's get some fresh blood in. And I think this year, as far as like coaching goes, I think we're going to have the most fresh blood in that we've seen in a while, because you still consider DeMeco Ryan, new, even though he's got a rookie deal, and you're going to look around and you're going to see a lot of changes, and they're happening already pretty quick. Mm-hmm. There was a couple other ones that I was going to mention. The Titans are expected to hire the Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their head coach.
Woo!
Head coach. This is a head coaching hire. Wow. Now it's expected, so I won't say that yet, but Tom Pelissero was the one that reported it. So, I mean, what he did for Burrow in the Bengals. I mean, Burrow was hurt, so not a great year, but maybe the perfect time to go ahead and snag him. I was surprised about this. They didn't even interview Bill Belichick. They wanted to go offensive. And it would have been silly. It was dumb to fire Mike Vrabel, but it would have been dumber to hire Mike Vrabel and go with a defensive guy, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, at least here they're making a whole genre shift, and they're trying to bring in somebody, because the NFL, it's trending offensively. And if the people that don't want to adapt are going to get left behind. That's just the way it is. Like, you can't just patriot your way through this. This is a new NFL. This is going to require creativeness, innovation, communicating with your players. There's a whole new generation of kids that are coming up that you can't communicate like you communicated with our generation, with the next generation. They're totally different. So that is a hire I honestly wasn't expecting. And then I have some injury news. Mark Andrews' ankle. He was not activated off injured reserve last week. He should practice this week. John Harbaugh said if he's ready to play, he'll play. Marlon Humphrey, who was inactive as well for the divisional game, I'm pretty sure if he can be out there, he'll be out there. So both of those people day to day. The Buffalo Bills signed KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler was a third-round draft pick that we drafted in the same draft as Drew Lock. Very, very fast, but just injuries, barely on the field. Honestly, I hope he can go have some success, but this is going to be a Josh Allen team. Like, this isn't Drew Lock throwing you the ball. This isn't Teddy Bridgewater. He's actually going to have the opportunity to showcase that speed and become that deep threat for Josh Allen, the guy that's fucking just taking the top off the defense, running a seam. And dude, I saw so many times, literally, this guy, his route consists of just running straight. And he literally runs past the corner and then runs past the safety. And if you throw a good ball, he just catches the ball. You watch the replay and it's just, yep, there he goes. There he goes.
Catch.
So he can be that, like, fuck it, KJ's out there somewhere, like, just throw it up. And, Allen's got the arm for it. So I think this is not just because it's a Bronco, but I think because of the team and how much they're going to use him. Like, they don't have a huge need for him, with Shakir stepping up. But Gabriel Davis is expected to test free agency. I don't know if things ended weird with Buffalo, but it feels like they did.
I thought so too, yeah.
Yeah, just the fact that we didn't see him. Deshaun Watson underwent surgery on his displaced fracture in his throwing shoulder today. They said, or maybe it happened a while ago, but it's saying it's coming along well. I don't know why this would be news today, though, if he didn't just recently have it. But it would be surprising. I thought he had his surgery like a week after he would, the news came out. But I think what they're just trying to say is, the team anticipates Watson will be on a normal schedule and ready for the 2024 season. Ready for the biggest, craziest one. This one did not This one didn't make big news. I don't know why. And I wanted to wait to tell you.
I think I know what it is.
What does the first letter start with?
Z. The disappointment in Kyle's face. I was going to bring this up as soon as you were done, but Kyle, go ahead.
No, you got it. I just did too. So
Zach Ertz, the guy I thought was for sure going to go to the Ravens when the Arizona Cardinals released them and said, go ahead, be free, young Zach Ertz, be free on a playoff team, is actually going to be going to the Detroit Lions. We saw Sam Laporta in the divisional round, and what he scored a touchdown. His fucking leg was wrapped up 1,000,000 times. So he was very effective, but always plan ahead. And that's exactly what the Lions are doing here. That's exactly what Dan Campbell and everybody else is doing here. Zach Ertz is still a very, very good tight end. And you've got a rookie sensation in Sam Laporta. This is in no way replacing him, but Zach Ertz is a fucking amazing backup to have. Similar to like OBJ on the Ravens. Did they need OBJ? The name is awesome, but he can make some plays when it counts. Zach Ertz is the same thing. He's not going to jump off the page anymore, but he's going to be a reliable target for Jared Goff if, God forbid, Laporta does go down in these playoffs.
Yeah, dude. And it makes me wonder, too, if something a little more serious is going on with Sam Laporta. He's been able to tough it out for the wild card game. He toughed it out last week. It didn't look like anything, but he's probably super banged up, and I highly doubt if these games weren't playoff games, he would even be in them. So maybe Zach Ertz, because this is the thing, he's signing and he's going to start off on the practice squad to potentially be elevated for the NFC Championship game. This is like, hey, could you just imagine being on your couch if you're Zach Ertz and your phone rings and it's like, hey, can you go? Like,
Joe Flacco, like, I know you were on the couch, but can you go?
But even crazier, because it's like, hey, we need you to come help our team. We're one game from the Super Bowl. Does it sound fair enough? You know, it's like, dude, I bet so many players would be willing to do that for free. Just an opportunity to win a ring. And if he is on the practice squad and he gets elevated to the active roster, then he gets a huge bonus for making the Super Bowl. And I think there's like a $200,000 bonus for maybe 50 or something, but per playoff win. So there's going to be, aside from the contract incentives, there's incentives just because of the weight of these football games and the reward that comes with winning them. So I'm happy for Zach Ertz. I didn't feel like he was done.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's good to see him get on another team. Tim Boyle, by the way, he's going to be the backup quarterback for CJ Stroud next year. He was
wow.
one of 12 players that was signed to a reserve/future contract. And the last one, well, there's two more. So Debo did not have that fracture in his shoulder. We said that already. Kyle Shanahan later confirmed that it's not broken, but it's hurting too much for the team to tell if he's going to be ready to play. That is, I'm telling you right now, this whole thing is pending my prediction. And then for Kansas City, their guard, Joe Thuney, or Thuney.
Bill Crafty, get him.
Sick him.
Sick him.
Suffered a pectoral strain in yesterday's game, although this is potentially a good sign that it was just a strain. His status will be tracked throughout the week, and it's still up in the air right now. So that is, I mean, that's a really good offensive line. Yeah, they're gonna need that. So, yeah, a lot of news. I mean, obviously with the playoffs going on, a lot of these stories kind of take a back seat. That, you know, if this was 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, we'd be like, oh my God, Zach Ertz, you know, but it just kind of snuck in there. It's like, hold on, wait a minute.
Shane Waldron, fucking Callahan of the Titans.
Alex
awesome.
McGough is be the backup, dude.
Holy shit, Tim Boyle, are you kidding me? Where else are you going to get that other than here on the Only Football Podcast? But now it's time, Kyle. It's time for the little
chives. All
with
right,
Kyle.
So, one question for advancing in eliminated playoff teams. Okay, I'm going to give you quick 8 questions. For the Ravens, can the Ravens defense be solved? Lamar Jackson was the headliners in the game. Anybody who watched that beatdown had to come away wondering if any opposing offense has the juice to conquer this defense. So can any team actually defeat this defense? This is insane what they're doing week after week, and it really felt like if anyone could do it, CJ Stroud. He had the young energy, the optimism to do it, and he couldn't do it. So we'll look forward to that. The Chiefs, the team they'll be playing, have the Chiefs finally resolved their offensive problems? Kansas City, with their win, they had 1 turnover. It was a huge one. It was McCole Hardman who lost the one and it resulted in a touchback. But there were no frustrating drops by the receivers. The Chiefs also received major contributions from the players they need the most in their hopes of reaching the Super Bowl. And everybody's looked pretty solid these last two games. So that's the question for Kansas City. Is the offense fixed? And that question and the Ravens question line up really nice, don't they? Can any offense stop this defense? And are the Chiefs' offense good enough to go against this defense? Hand in hand. And then for the 49ers, how much did Brock Purdy prove with the game-winning drive? Brock Purdy attracts a lot of haters as easily as maybe Taylor Swift, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform in this game. He's going to sexually for sure. Gear?
Talking about
my gear. Wait. I just want to make sure this doesn't. Okay, for you guys that don't know, this is Billy Bob Thornton and Bad Santa, and it's one of me and Rick's like day one quotes where when he's like super hungover, looking away, daydreaming, he's looking at some chick's ass, and he's like, I just want to make sure this won't affect your performance. He's talking about, this is the mall manager talking about him on the job. And he goes, here's performance. He goes, well, you talking about my gear? And he's like, what? He's like, is that what you're trying to say? I can't get it to work. Is that what you're trying to say to me? He's like, I'm sorry. I don't understand. What are you talking? He's like, my gear. He goes, my fuck stick.
Day one, Kyle and I were just laughing our asses off at this fucking comment. It was great.
You saying there's something wrong with my gear? Is that what you're saying to me?
My fuck stick.
My fuck stick. All right, for Detroit, one simple question. Can Detroit pull the upset? The Lions delivered a magical season, the most magical season in over 3 decades. Now it's time to learn whether they can take this franchise to the one place that it's never been, the Super Bowl. There were a lot of
Mhm.
doubts whether Detroit could accomplish that a week ago, and that's all changed because of the way Green Bay attacked the 49ers in San Francisco. They nearly pulled that huge upset. So now the Lions were a safe bet to do what they did on Sunday, which was a 31-23 win over Tampa. We predicted that. I know you didn't, but like the world was kind of back in the Lions. Now the Lions have to go on the road for the first time in the postseason. They have a dominant offensive line, a strong running game, versatile weapons on the offensive side. Jared Goff
Mhm.
has experience. Aiden Hutchinson is very disruptive. They have it all. Can Detroit finish this story? Because it is
Finish.
still being written, and and that
All
is
day, Kyle.
and that is that is the question for Detroit. Buffalo. How does Buffalo reach the Super Bowl? I won't even elaborate. You guys understand that one.
Yep.
Houston Texans. Can Houston duplicate its success next season? I actually think this is a very good question. The writer did a great job in this article because it's a valid question. All right. There was a lot of exceptions this year.
Mhm.
CJ Stroud was better than we thought. Head coach D'Amico Ryan's better than we thought. The Alabama defensive or
Singleton.
no. The edge rusher that they signed.
Anderson Jr.
Yeah, Will Anderson Jr. Thing.
There you go.
It's been a long season.
Long day.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that's a very valid question. Like, is this just kind of like your first time in a casino, or is there actually a model that they can continue down the road and even get better? That's a very good question, and I think there's going to be people that are going to be on both sides when we get to our offseason predictions. For the eliminated team, or besides the Texans, right? Tampa Bay, did they find their franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield? The Bucs didn't know what they were getting when they signed Mayfield from the Rams. A 1-year prove-it deal last March. He was joining his fourth team in under a calendar year, and he couldn't even hold the job in Carolina. It's apparent today that he was worth the investment. Mayfield didn't just enjoy the best year of his career with the Bucs after winning the job in training camp. He helped give this team a feisty identity, and it was critical for this team to win the NFC South for a third consecutive season and reaching the divisional round. There were big shoes to fill. I remember when he came in, he said, "I'm not Tom Brady." And we said, "No shit. We know you're not Tom Brady."
What?
But what maybe he was saying was, I am him. I don't have to be Tom Brady. I can be Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's a damn good quarterback. And the question is going to be, is Tampa Bay willing to make a long-term investment now? Ian Rappaport's reporting today that there's mutual interest in Baker Mayfield staying put. And that would be the best thing for a franchise that didn't know what it was going to do at quarterback not too long ago. Baker Mayfield might have finally found a long-term home in Florida, which Baker's always been a Floridian, dude. You saw him on the sideline fucking flipping people off and suck it. And like, dude, he's got Florida up in him. He's going to love it. He's going to love it.
He's got Florida all up in him.
All up in him. And then the last one is the Green Bay Packers. Does Green Bay become an NFC power? The Packers should be happy about where the franchise currently sits. Even after its heartbreaking loss to the 49ers, Jordan Love matured into a star in the second half of the season. His supporting cast is young and talented at wide receiver: Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Datavion Wicks, Bo Melton, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, while running back Aaron Jones finished with 5 consecutive 100 rushing yard games, 5 in a row.
Jesus.
The same defense that was a liability in December became downright the best almost in the postseason in these last couple games. You also have to be impressed with how the Packers beat up on the Cowboys. That team, this is a team that needed a Week 18 win over Chicago to even make the playoffs. Green Bay now looks like it could take down any team in the NFC, regardless of the circumstances. That speaks to how great Matt LaFleur has made those adjustments and became a really great coach. There's going to be a lot of doubters probably, but it shouldn't be lost on anybody that Love won his first playoff game in the same week that Rodgers was feuding with Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, shut the fuck up. But
Love it.
yeah, like somehow these are connected. Like, oh look,
Totally, dude.
Rodgers was he was toxic in the building. That's why they didn't win last year. It's like, dude, or Jordan Love's just playing better at this part of his career. Like,
Yeah. Oh God. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for those chives. Martian, what are the Cowboys' main problems? Make sure to tune in to the Only Football Podcast over the
I can give
offseason.
up one real quick just for
What's
coming
the
in
one?
here.
What's the one?
I'll say the number one problem is going to be experience. Dak, that you got an entire team that it looks like they're not ready for that big game. Now you bring in Mike McCarthy, who's got 1 year of Super Bowl experience, or Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. You have Dan Quinn, who's gone to a Super Bowl with Atlanta. And it just seems like maybe what that building needs is a guy that's just been there a bunch. And I don't think it's a coach. I think it's players. I think it could be somebody like not Von Miller, but somebody like that, that's at that third stage in their career and they've won Super Bowls, maybe adding an Odell Beckham Jr., not him, but a guy like that.
Him. Yeah.
Like start bringing in those people. And the best way to do it, honestly, is to wait 2 weeks, see which team wins the Super Bowl, even which team loses in the Super Bowl, see which one of those teams fills one of your needs and who is, looking for a contract. Try to bring in some of that. Your value will never be higher than when you win a Super Bowl. After we won Super Bowl 50, we lost a ton of people because why?
Yep.
Those teams knew that if we can bring in somebody that knows what it's like to go to that game, then he can help bring that experience to everybody else. That's there's no price tag on that. So definitely that's what I think the Cowboys need right now.
Elevating
and
that locker room.
I think they should. I wouldn't say extend Dak. I think he still has. Does he still have a couple years on his contract? I think
so. Yeah.
So yeah, what you don't want to do is like Russell Wilson had a year on his contract, and we're like, let's give him a 6-year deal worth $200 million. We didn't need to push the issue. He was under contract. If Dak Prescott's under contract, let him stay under contract and let him prove later down the road that he deserves an extension.
Awesome answers, Kyle. And Martian, thanks for stopping by. Please hit that follow button on Twitch. And if you want to join us on YouTube, also do that here at the Only Football Podcast. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, everybody who made fun of me and Kyle on the stream. We always appreciate that. That is always, always, always a fun time for us because guess what? We don't do names here on the Only Football Podcast.
We've been saying that since day one. We've stayed pretty consistent with that.
We're like, Dabble, Dable, who gives a shit? The New York Giants head coach, double the size of a man's regular balls. There we go. So thank you guys for stopping in. Crafty Bill, Martian, MRM, Turbo, Matthew Plummer, everybody who stopped by and left a comment. Thank you guys for stopping by, and make sure before you leave a like on the video. We would greatly appreciate it. Share the video, tell your friends, your neighbors, your family members, people that you see walking down the street that you don't know that will probably give you a one of those stank faces if you even like breathe near them. Tell them about the Only Football Podcast. And we can't wait to see you guys the next time. Of course, you can always follow us in our shenanigans on X. You could follow me at And Now Rick, and you can follow the Only Football page at Only Football KR. Kyle, where can they follow you on X?
You can follow me at FTBLONLYPODCAST. And Rick, last thing, with the new year comes, for some teams, sometimes new uniforms, right?
Okay.
How would you feel if the Washington Commander, because I think they're still talking about if they want to go Commanders, or some people
Yep,
are like, I
something
like
else.
football team. Some people really like the football team. And some people like what they were called before that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you got a lot of people that want different things. But do you think that there's going to be some new uniforms this year? Because it's a long process. It involves like Nike and a lot more than you could even imagine. Changing your uniforms is not just like the owner does it like that. I mean, but do you want to see some new uniforms, and do you have a team that you think is going to do it this year? We don't know anything.
Definitely going to be the Commanders.
You
They're
think
definitely
you
going
change their colors?
they're changing their team name, and with that, the uniforms as well. I think they
All
might keep the maroon. I think they might keep that for sure.
I think they should. I think they should change the other color, because I always think of like I'm in like in the 80s when you're in like or like a living room from the 80s that never became more modernized. Like it just
Yeah,
it looks gross a little bit. Like
yeah.
the maroon is cool, or I guess that's what you call that, right? Maroon.
Maroon. Yeah.
But the other color, I maybe make it more gold or something, right?
Something like that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I agree. May the new owner, new stuff's happening. New stuff is happening, so it wouldn't be a surprise at all. All right, and with that, again, thank you guys again for joining us. Big shout out, and I'm gonna do this on our sign offs. Big shout out to Tom Grassi. Big shout out to the NFL for being in our streams. Always going to be grateful to you guys. And Kyle, always a good time, brother. Always a good time.
Always a good time. I will see you guys on the next stream. See ya.